Stats SA says annual headline inflation slowed to 5.4% in June from 6.3% in May. Now, the last time inflation was below 6% was in April 2022. Let's speak to Xhanti Payi. He's the senior economist from PwC now. Xhanti, thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon. In the simplest terms, just explain headline inflation to us, what it measures and why it's so important to keep track of it.
Good afternoon, Zinga, to your viewers. Very importantly, it really measures the rate at which prices are increasing on a month-to-month basis, but also on a year-to-year basis. Remember, we'd like to know potentially whether or not our money is buying more or it's buying less. And one of the things that we're able to do is to aggregate, a basket of goods that South Africans buy, from food to fuel to other goods and services that we are able to buy, and then we'll say on a monthly basis. But the one we really use quite strongly and quite frequently is the year-to-year one, where we compare from June to in the current year to June in the previous year, or May to May. So we usually use the what they call year-to-year, which is really comparing the particular month that we have received the number to what that number was in the previous month, just so that we can get a sense in terms of where we were the previous year and where we are. That's, of course, specifically important in terms of the decisions we make.
Okay, so Xhanti, with this 5.4%, it's within the Reserve Bank target range of 3 to 6%. So those high interest rates were doing something, or is there something else to that story?
Well, there are a number of things that have been happening in terms of the story. Certainly, it's important to recognize that many of the factors that have affected prices really have nothing to do with demand, where really the interest rates tend to work, but that there has been another thing where the stability of the exchange rate is probably being supported by the higher interest rates. So the exchange rate itself, so the cost at which we buy goods outside of South Africa, and we know that we import quite a lot of the goods that we consume. Then secondly, of course, we've seen food prices coming down very, very nicely, even in this number now coming down around 11%. That has been a big contributor, but the biggest one is probably transport. Many of us know that inflation, prices of oil, and many people use public transport. We've seen those increases over the past year, and now that has come down dramatically, and that has also been a really good contributor to this number that we're seeing today.
Okay, Xhanti, can you take us through any other notable changes in those figures?
Well, I think it's on a broad basis, one of the things that I think we would be very concerned about, because earlier you were asking about headline inflation, which is the more all-encompassing number. Then we have got what we call the core inflation. That is really taking out these prices that tend to fluctuate quite a lot. We know food fluctuates quite a lot. We know that energy fluctuates quite a lot. We know that transport fluctuates quite a lot. So if we take those out, we are left with something called core inflation, which really speaks then to the general one that tends to be more stable. Unfortunately, that number seems to be quite stubborn. It's at 5%. The Reserve Bank always wants that to be lower. And this is now something that they've been very concerned about for a very long period of time, because usually you want that to come down, because that is not as fluctuating. And 5% is not coming down closer maybe to that midpoint of 4.5%. So that is something that I think we will hear tomorrow when the Reserve Bank governor is talking. He's probably going to reflect on that in terms of how stubborn this number has been, really being above 5%. And one would have hoped that it would have come down over a period of time, especially because it is based really on demand rather than and the fluctuations that we see in the market. So that's probably one note with the area that should be concerning, even though we've got good reason to be concerned, to be happy given the decision tomorrow.
Okay. Can you hazard a guess about what's going to happen? I'm hearing, interest rates unchanged or very small hike.
There's something very important. I think the Reserve Bank governor talking about something that they call the long-term real repo rate. And really, this is a number they call that for them is important to be around 2.5% and higher. And so he was saying that, this is the number that they've been looking at. And that's been a concerning thing, because for now, that number has been under 2.5%. So saying that they want to so it gave us concern that they may increase interest rates to come to get to that number. And before this number came out, there was space perhaps for about another 25 basis points to 50 basis points. Now that the inflation number has come down, that real number is up, and perhaps there's a space now for the Reserve Bank to pause. It may very well be that there's a space to pause, but of course there's a concern, as many of us would have heard, in terms of Russia and the threats that is made around that grain channel, where they may actually disrupt grain supplies. And that probably is going to affect global prices of food going forward. So that's one area where we are very concerned that the Reserve Bank governor may reflect on. But even what got today, it really is looking like he may very well pause and then just watch where things are going, because it really is, we've seen some really, really dramatic numbers. There isn't really a lot of space. We've seen, obviously, the impact on the economy, the weakness that we've seen in the economy. So really, that is probably the likelihood, the strongest likelihood is that he keeps the numbers now where we are, because, of course, we're also now below the expectation in terms of what we thought we would see this year at the end of this year. So all of these things suggest that there's space to pause for the Reserve Bank and see how things develop, especially in terms of of these threats, in terms of food prices and maybe some energy, and then see how we roll out. If he does do something, it's probably going to be very, very small, marginal at 25 basis points. But all indications should be that there's a pause for now and watch the changes and dynamics in the market.